All right, so this video is going to be covering Chapter 8 of Improving Vocabulary Skills. Let's take a second to just go through and read these words and try to guess its parts of speeches. Our first one's blatant, blight, contrive, and that's actually a clue. We have IVE, which normally means an adjective when it's a iv, but when it's an ive, it's something else when it's an I sound. Garble, gaunt, gloat, emasculate, 8 should be a clue for you. Plagiarism, ism is actually a clue as well. Qualm, retaliate, 8 should be a clue for you. So our first word here is blatant, and this one is an adjective. Eva is a blatant bargain hunter. Not only does she wait for end of season sales, but she chooses an already reduced item and then asks if the salesperson will accept a lower price. The company's disregard for the environment was blatant. It makes no effort to stop polluting coastal waters with garbage. Blatant means is unmistakable. Now, one of the words we've already studied is the word flagrant, and we talked about flagrant being like a foul, meaning some mistake or some misdeed that was so obvious that everybody could see it. Blatant has that same sort of meaning. When we say that something is blatant, it means that it's obvious, and it's also obviously intentional. Let me just see here on page 47. Blatant is number 8. Very obvious, often offensively so. So in the first example, it's saying, she's a blatant bargain hunter. Now, we say that this is, negatively so, because in general, in society, being cheap or trying to get things for the cheapest possible price, everybody wants to do that. But in some cultures, it's considered to be a little bit coarse or a little bit rude. Obviously, you want to be cheap, but to be obvious about it is a little bit not exactly polite. In the second one, the company's disregard for the environment is blatant. It means they don't care about the environment, and they don't care if anybody knows about it. So blatant and flagrant are similar, but flagrant has more of a meaning of that it's just very obviously wrong. But blatant means not only is it obviously wrong, but also it's intentionally obviously wrong. That the person or company or thing that is doing the blatant action doesn't care if people know that what they're doing is wrong. Our next word here is blight, and this is a noun. Blight can also be a verb, but in this case we're using it as a noun. So nothing has hurt our country more than the blight of drugs. There are two ways of looking at TV: as a valuable source of information, or as a blight that dulls the mind. So what blight is, blight means something that harms something else. It's number 4 on page 47. Something that weakens, damages, or destroys. So blight normally means not just a single instance of something that hurts. So for example, we wouldn't say getting punched in the face is a blight, even though that is something that harms. A blight is a problem or a behavior or a disease that is affecting, that has a large scale effect. So in the picture here where it says this tomato plant struck by blight, this is not just a bad thing that happened to one tomato, but it was something that happened to all of the tomatoes, or the majority of the tomatoes. In the first example, when it's talking about the blight of drugs, it's not just talking about 1 or 2 or even 3 people using drugs and having bad effects in their lives. It's talking about all of society being affected negatively by it. So blight is something that harms, but it's on a large scale. Something that harms society. We could talk about the blight of racism. This is something that's not just harming individuals, but that is harming society. We can also talk about the blight of terrorism. This is not just individuals, but is harming a large group of people. Our next word here is contrive, and this is a verb. So similar to what we talked about before with ate, with that ate sound, that long A sound, making it a verb. When we have a IVE word that ends in ive with a long I sound, it tends to be a verb. My 8-year-old son could write a book titled 100 Ways I Have Contrived to Stay Up Past My Bedtime. Jill has contrived a way to get a day off work from her friend's wedding, for her friend's wedding. She's already used up her vacation. So, things to think up. On page 47, it's number 6, and this is important. It means to plan cleverly. So when we talk about contriving, we normally mean that you're thinking up some sort of plan, and you're thinking up some sort of clever or smart or tricky plan to get out of a situation which you don't want to be in, or to avoid doing something that you don't want to do. So the examples here are both fall into that. So it says 101 ways I contrive to stay up past my bedtime. Kids don't, not all of them, but some kids, they don't want to go to bed, right? They want to stay up. So it's a tricky plan that the person came up with so that they can stay up later. My son, one of the things he does is he always engages us in conversation so that we have to keep on talking to him so that he can stay up later. In the second one, she has to contrive a way to get out of work. She doesn't want to go to work. She wants to go to her friend's wedding. So she has to think up a sort of a tricky or clever way to get out of that. Our next word here is garble. And don't be confused because this ends in BLE. Remember, it's a BLE that makes something an adjective, not just the BLE. So this is a verb. So the new reporter garbled the news story. The result was an article that made no sense at all. The company had garbled the bike's assembly instructions so badly that we were constantly confused about which step to do next. So what garble means, jumble. To jumble means to make something unclear. When we talk about garbling, what it really means is that you're taking something and you're sort of mixing it up so that it's out of order and it doesn't make any sense anymore. So in the first example, it's saying the news reporter garbled the newspaper story, meaning that the news reporter said maybe all of the words that were in the story, but they weren't in the right order. They were out of order, and as a result of that, it doesn't make sense. In the second example with the bike assembly instructions, all of the instructions were there, but they weren't in the correct order. So as a result of that, they're not. It's not easy to understand. On page number 47, it's number 2. To mix up or confuse, as in a story or a message, scramble. So there's two parts to it. I mean, the main thing is that it makes something unclear. But the way that it's made unclear is because it's not in the correct order. When you're telling the story, maybe you're starting with the end, and then you start with the end, then you go to the beginning, and then you go to the middle. So instead of the right order, beginning, middle, end, you have end, beginning, middle, so it's all out of order, and as a result, it's very hard to understand. Our next word here is gaunt, and this is an adjective. Abraham Lincoln's beard made his gaunt face look fuller. Sharon's eating disorder, called anorexia nervosa, has made her so gaunt she looks like a walking skeleton. So gaunt means very, very thin. It's number, it's number 10 on page 47, thin and bony. So in society today, generally, it's a compliment to be called thin. That's a good thing. But it's not a compliment to be called gaunt. Gaunt has the meaning of that you're too skinny or that you're too thin. If you're gaunt, it means that you look skinny in a way that perhaps you're unhealthy. You're skinny because you're sick, or you're skinny in a way that makes you look sick. So to say that someone is gaunt is definitely not a compliment, even though calling a person thin is a compliment. Our next word here is gloat, and this one is a verb. The coach told his team, "There's only one thing worse than a sore loser. That's a mean winner. Don't gloat." Neil's sister always tattles on him and then gloats when he's punished, saying, "I told you so." So gloat to be overly self-satisfied. Okay, so let's take this first example here. A sore, when we say a sore loser, it means that someone who loses a game and then is all sad and is mean and upset about it is what we call a sore loser. But a mean winner is a person who gloats. And what this means is that after the person has won, it's not enough that they just won. They also, we have the expression, they rub your nose in it. They put it in your face. So they're like, I won, I'm the best, I'm the best. This sort of thing. This being overly self-satisfied, meaning you did something good, but you're bragging about how you did something good. Oftentimes when we talk about gloating, it means that the reason that you are celebrating is to make the person who lost feel bad. So in the second example, the sister, she told on him, and then she gloats, meaning she's happy that he got punished, and she wants him to feel bad because he got punished. So gloat is, it's not bad to feel self-satisfied or be happy about your achievement, but when you gloat, you do it in a way that makes someone else feel bad. Our next word here is immaculate. And I forget if I pronounced this right in the first one. I might have said immaculate. Immaculate is actually a verb, but this immaculate is an adjective, and it's got the sound it at the end rather than ate. It's amazing that while Caroline's appearance is always immaculate, her apartment often seems very dirty. Don't expect a child to come home from a birthday party with immaculate clothing. Children usually manage to get as much birthday cake on their clothing as in their mouths. And immaculate means spotless. It's number 9 on page 47, perfectly clean. All right, so the from Christianity, there's the story of the Immaculate Conception, and the conception means creation, and in this case, conception means the creation of a child. So when they talk about the story of Immaculate Conception in Christianity, it's in reference to the birth of Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not a religious scholar, but my understanding of why it's called an immaculate conception is that the normal way that children are conceived or children are made is through sex. And my understanding of why it's considered to be an immaculate conception is that there is no sex, because sex is sort of a dirty thing, right? So that the Christian story, and this is also true in Islam, is that Mary, Jesus' mother, that God put Jesus in her without her having sex with a man. So this is this idea of this immaculate conception. In regular day-to-day work, when we say that something is immaculate, we mean that it is perfect, but perfect in the way that it has no flaws, and is perfectly organized and is perfectly clean. So in the picture there, you see an immaculate kitchen, right? Everything is in the correct order and everything is perfectly clean. All right. Our next word here is plagiarism, which is a word that we should all be aware of if we are going to college. And this is a noun. Now, words that end in ism tend to be nouns. And ism normally means some idea. It references an idea rather than a thing. When the author saw a movie with the same plot as one of her novels, she sued for plagiarism. The teacher warned her students that using an author's exact words as one's own is plagiarism. So plagiarism is the stealing of ideas. It's number 5 on page 47. Using someone else's writing or ideas as one's own. So this is the big no-no in college and also in academics. But plagiarism basically means is that you're taking someone else's ideas, and it could be, it could be literally not just their ideas, but the exact words that they said, and you're not giving credit to that person. You're making out like that person's ideas are your ideas, or you're making other people believe that you came up with those ideas. In academics, that's a huge no-no, because for most academics, people in colleges and universities, the thing that they create are ideas and thoughts. So it would be the same as, if you were building a new machine and someone stole the designs for your machine and created their own machine without giving you credit, which is why it's such a serious offense in academics. Our next one here is qualm, and qualm is also a noun. Lorenzo is so honest that he has qualms about telling little white lies. For instance, it bothers him to say he likes a friend's new haircut when he really doesn't. After hiding Kwan's bike as an April Fool's joke, I began to have qualms. What if she thought it was stolen and called the police? So what a qualm is a guilty feeling. On page 47, qualm is number 1. An uneasy feeling about how right or proper a particular action is. Okay. So when we talk about a qualm, we're saying it's a guilty feeling. What this normally means is that you've done something and you're not sure, you're feeling guilty about it because you're not sure whether it's right or whether it's wrong. But it's more that you're worried that it is wrong. So in the first example, this guy is so honest that even telling white lies, which are like small lies, like, yeah, your haircut looks good, bothers him because in his mind he feels like it's wrong, and so his conscience or his morals make him feel a little bit uncomfortable. In the second example, it's a little bit different, but when this person stole the bike, and they're starting to think maybe that was a bad idea to steal the bike. Pardon me, I'm tired. But a qualm is a feeling that you have about something that you've done that you think was wrong. Now, just because you have qualms doesn't mean you're going to change your mind about it. You may do something and feel guilty about it or have a qualm about it, but still not change your behavior. So, for example, trying to think of something simple, but if you may have qualms about, like, if you go to the grocery store and if there's fruit there, like grapes or something, you may have qualms about, like, whether or not you should, taste the grapes before you buy them. You may have qualms about that. Think like, maybe that's not a good thing to do, um, but you might do it anyway. Um, so you wouldn't say like most people in general aren't going to say, "Oh, I have qualms about killing people." Um, Hopefully nobody has killed someone so that you feel guilty about it, but a qualm is more of a sense of like you've done something that at the time you thought, oh, that's okay, but later on you're like, maybe that wasn't so good. So it's just a sense, that maybe something you did was not so good. So we're not talking about, major things like murder that everybody would agree is a wrong thing to do. And so our last word here is retaliate, and this one is an 8 sound, so this is a verb. When I broke my sister's stereo, she retaliated by taking my iPod earphones and refusing to give them back. When Ron refused to pay his younger brother for washing his car, he retaliated by washing it again with its windows open. So retaliate means to take revenge on someone. It's number 7 on page 47. To return an injury for an injury, payback. So some of you may have heard this idea of an eye for an eye, right? That this is an ancient law, an eye for an eye. So if you took my eye, then as a way to retaliate, I take your eye. If you cut off my finger, I cut off your finger. So retaliate means to take revenge, but it means that someone has done something wrong to you, hurt you or injured you or stolen from you, and you do something in return wrong to them. So when you retaliate, basically you're harming the person back, either in a similar way or maybe in a worse way, or a less worse way. But when you're retaliating, your goal is also to injure them or hurt them in the same way that you have been hurt. All right, so that's it. Finish off the exercises in the book or online, and then do the questions, and then bring any questions you have with you to class. Take care. See you in class. Bye.